Hi, and welcome back to the Global Holistic Podcast. This is The Conversation Continues. And today we're talking about how to make serious life changes quickly. Okay, so today we're talking about this buzzword, manifestation. Some people like it, some people don't. So we're also going to use other terminology like creating the life you want, how to bring in new habits, how to bring in the things that you truly desire and get out of your own way and stop self-doubting. But before we get started, we're going to have to address something I am going to need to work on manifesting, which is no longer matching with my mom.
I hope you do not succeed at that. I like matching with my daughter. I think it's cute. I've loved it since you were little.
Okay, well, just to address this, we did not plan it. We did not have time to change, and let's go ahead and show the mug we chose today again. This happens a lot on our channel, I swear. We do not plan our outfits ever. We just sometimes match. So let's get that out of the way.
No, we do not plan this. In fact, we get started and we're like, oh, okay, it's just keeps happening.
You top. I didn't even know you had that. You got that like a day ago.
I just got this. I just got it. Yeah.
So that's where we're at, guys. So we just want to make sure you can trust us. We're not a bunch of weirdos that match. Anyways, moving on. So moving forward, how to manifest, how to create new changes. And I just want to say that if you're one of those people who hears the word manifest and you're like, oh no, a bunch of woo-woo, we're going to also give you some neuroscience and some real science behind how this works. So, Mom, you are probably known in the community as the master manifester. So why don't you get us started today?
I love that. Yeah, I will own that title because it is something that struck my curiosity in my late teens. I was blessed with some teachers that were talking about the power of mind. And again, it just becoming curious is a gift. What you don't want is a closed door. And what I want to start with, Gina, you were saying there's a lot of different ways of saying the same thing, and sometimes get people get turned off by a certain word. If you can just suspend any judgments and anything that you don't believe, awesome. There were so many things I didn't believe. I just encourage you to try it. So if you don't believe something, put it to the test because that's the way you become your own scientist. It either works or it doesn't. And there's something going on here, unexplainable. And I don't even think science has actually caught up with it yet. You know, we have ancient teachings that go back thousands of years that point us in the direction of the power of mind in creating the life we love. I've had so many teachers over the decades, and one of the things that really fascinated me was the statement that you have two choices. You can either master your mind or your mind masters you.
I love
Yeah. And, so what we're talking about here is being able to channel that power of mind and focus it in a certain direction. If you want to simplify it, some people call it goal setting. Others get a little bit more complicated with creative visualization. But I will say this, if you study anyone at the top of their game, entrepreneurs, celebrities, Olympians, anyone who has mastered, succeeded in the area that they desired, they're going to talk about some form of creative visualization, focus, goal setting, meditation, fixed concentration. So again, a lot of different terminology, but basically saying the same thing. So it's getting clear on a desire or a wish, something that you'd like to create for yourself, and then learning how to channel that power of mind in that direction. And one of the easiest ways to get, well, I shouldn't say easy, I should say simplest ways, it's not easy, is to get into the power of belief, where you really feel like you get a knowing that it's going to happen or that you are creating it. And I want to be a little bit more specific because when I say that it's going to happen, here's where it gets tricky because with creative visualization, you have to get into the feeling like you're already there. So let's say you wanted to create financial abundance. And I'm going to go with that because a lot of people can relate to that. So if you were wanting to create financial abundance, you would need to already feel abundant because there's a vibration that like attracts like, and you cannot attract that with which you are not. So it's getting into a vibration of abundance. So you'd be focusing basically on everything that you have. You'd be focusing on the simple things, just running water, food in the refrigerator, a car.
That like gratitude feeling too, bringing that gratitude.
Gratitude, yes, which would raise the vibration. And the law of attractions also is called the law of vibration, which is probably more accurate than the law of attraction. And look, we're going to give you some tips as we go along. This is something that is to be explored. I love this topic, obviously, you can tell, and it's not really something that can be covered in 20 minutes, but we're going to do our best to get you interested and to inspire you to actually explore more yourself. But where I'm starting is with that mindset of belief. And how do you get there? I'll give you a tip or two before we're done, but I want to turn it over to you, Jake.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned beliefs because I think what we're trying to do here is like jazz the listener up to believe that change is possible because a lot of times we create self-fulfilling prophecies that work against us with our limiting belief systems. So part of this work and getting into this space of doing this work is believing that you can change and believing that you can make changes in your mind and in your internal world, which will then, of course, impact your external world. And as you just said, this is a very complicated topic. So it might even be a part one, part two here. But a lot of the things that we talk about on our channel actually integrate into manifestation and making life changes. When we talk about the power of thinking and how you see yourself, how you frame things. When we talk about uh, narrative therapy and the stories that we tell, and being careful about the words that you choose and how you describe your life to others. When we talk about the experiences that we collect in our bodies and in our subconscious and in our minds along the way, and how they impact the chances that we take or we don't take. This is all tying together. So that's why we call our program Global Holistic Wellness, because we realize that it is all interconnected. And so belief system is going to be a huge part of that. And we'll talk about how to start rewiring your belief systems about what you can achieve. A lot of times people get stuck in what, is referred to as poverty consciousness of, this fear of not having enough, or I can't, spend that, which sometimes is the right move, right? Sometimes we want to be responsible in our spending, but sometimes that fear mentality keeps us stuck because the ego would rather be miserably right than happily wrong, right? If we believe like this good stuff doesn't happen to me or that I won't have enough money to make rent next month, then we won't, right? So we do have to, in some way, get out of our own way, but also balance that with making responsible financial decisions if we're going to stick with this financial example. So I will say that a lot of people talk about this in different ways. Like there's like the secret, and there's this whole metaphysical world who will talk about manifestation, but neuroscience also talks about it, and we don't use the same words, but it's basically the same idea. And while we don't have a complete understanding of how the brain works, we know that the brain is very malleable, and we know that we can develop new neural pathways, and we know that writing down our goals and creating things like visualization boxes or visualization boards help us rewire and reprogram our brains in real time. So the kind of one of the keys here is rewiring your subconscious brain to believe that you will achieve the goal that you're set out for, but also that you're making choices throughout the day that are congruent with those goals. So for example, if one of the things I want to manifest is having a healthy body and a healthy mind, then I would write down that goal, multiple times every day. I would meditate, I would activate the parasympathetic nervous system. I would get into a place of calm and into a space of gratitude, and I would write it out. I am healthy, I am strong, I am healthy, I am strong. Some people will use mantra. And then how
Right.
that works is our neural pathways start to rewire. I am healthy, I am strong. So what happens that day when I go out to breakfast and I'm looking at the menu? Well, I am healthy and I am strong. So I'm going to order an egg white with avocado and maybe some sourdough toast. Whereas maybe 3 months ago, I would have gotten the chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream, and no shade if that's what you're ordering, just it wouldn't be congruent with the idea that you are healthy and strong. So
Sure.
we do have, what's nice is we do have that evidence that this does work as well. So let's go back and forth here, because I know that it's more interesting when we converse about this instead of we just monologue side by side, because I know that both of us teach this and both of us are definitely on the same page in how this works. And I know that some people will say, well, aren't I faking it? Aren't I lying to myself if I'm have a mantra like I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am strong, if I don't believe it? And I'm okay with that. Like I say, you can fake it till you make it, because that's how the subconscious pulls that up. And what is real, right? We have the ability to decide essentially who we are and who we're going to be. And what we're talking about is building the bridge to the new version of yourself. That version of yourself doesn't exist yet. That version of yourself isn't anything. So you're not lying by saying I am healthy and I am strong when you're thinking about the future. You don't know who you're going to be tomorrow. So get out of your own way.
And it's so perfect too. I love what you're saying because when we talk about belief and that kind of being, I want to call it the fertilizer. So let's say the thought is the seed. You have the thought about what you want to manifest. The belief is certainly the fertilizer, and then let's say the action is the watering. For if we go with that. So how do you believe if you're saying something that you have no material evidence of? So there's a part of your brain that's saying, like Gina was saying, I'm wealthy, but you can't pay your electric bill, so you have that, conflicting thoughts. You have those conflicting thoughts. So what do you do? Okay, so a couple of suggestions. Number one, you could say instead of like, well, I can't afford that, you could say to yourself, well, I can afford that. I just choose to pay my electric bill. I can't afford those shoes, but I just choose to be smart with my money and pay my electric bill. So, you can reframe it to the best of your ability. One of my earlier teachers, and I used finance because, as I said, I think a lot of people, would have that desire to have that kind of financial freedom or at least be more at ease. And, in my early days, that was certainly not the case. Young mom, two children, and, doing the best we could. And one of my earlier teachers was saying how you have to believe that you're already wealthy. And it was like, yeah, that's going to be real hard for me. And so my teacher said, do you have a roof over your head? Do you live in a home right now? And I was renting, I didn't own it, but that wasn't the point. Do you live in a home? Yes, I do. Do you know how many people around the world actually don't have a roof over their head? You're wealthier than so many people around the world. Do you have a car? Yes, I do. It barely runs. That's okay. You have a car. Do you know the percentage of how many people actually own cars in the world? I don't know what the percentage is right now, but I'll tell you, if you Google it, it's so small, it's going to blow your mind. So again, if you have a car and transportation, you are wealthier than, the majority of the world. So that's what this teacher was doing. Can you open your refrigerator and have food? Do you know how many people don't? Again, I already mentioned the running water. So by the time my teacher was done, my teacher was saying, can you feel honestly abundant? And I could. And so that's where you start because you can't fake this stuff. And when you do live in that place of gratitude for what you have, because remember, energy flows where attention goes. Whatever you focus on, you're going to get more of. So if you're focusing on the lack, that's what you're attracting. If you focus on, I have more than enough, I am blessed, that's what you're going to get more of. And one of the techniques, as far as getting into that place of belief, is using a gift that we're all born with, and that's the gift of imagination. And we can call that self hypnosis. We can call that guided meditation. But it's getting into what Gina was talking about, that altered state where you're actually activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And so if you get relaxed, now I'm going to bring in a little bit of yogic philosophy here in meditation, but if you get relaxed, and there's a belief that this energy center right here, the sixth chakra, is a portal where it enhances not only meditation, connecting with higher self, and opening the door to intuition and psychic abilities, but it's also believed that's a portal for manifestation. Sounds crazy? Don't believe me? Try it and see. So you get into a quiet place of meditation, the spine is straight, eyes are closed, eye gaze gently upward, not going cross-eyed, you're not forcing it. In a relaxed state, the palms could be up, first finger and thumb together, like you've seen, either in your own meditation or you've seen people meditating, and this is called a mudra that helps to quiet the mind. And then you can use your imagination. So this is different than meditation. And you will start to imagine what it is that you want to manifest. And you start to see it as specifically as you can. Picture details and start to act and imagine as if it's already happening. So when I say act, it's mean like feel the feeling. Because remember, I said the law of vibration is actually stronger than the law of attraction. Stronger than thought is feeling. So when you're using your imagination to imagine that, yes, it worked. I actually attracted that, wish, desire, dream. It happened. It's happening. Oh my goodness, this works. How does it feel? How much gratitude do you have? How much excitement? Ramp it up as much as you can. And if you can hold that, hold that sensation, hold that feeling, hold that thought, for, even several seconds will add fuel to the thought, but a few minutes would be terrific. And so, and then you're like just imagining it. I know it sounds a little crazy, but just putting it out there. And then we bring in the law of unattachment, where we say, this or something better is manifesting for me now, and you let it go. You do this every day, every morning when you first wake up, when you're kind of already in that altered state, right before you go to bed at night, ideal. Any time of day, great, but those are two of the strong, most strong times, morning and night, because you're already in a very relaxed state. You do this, and I want to say, I'm going to give you a 30-day challenge. You do this every morning, every night for 30 days, and you watch the miracle of how you will attract that with which you want. And I once had, more than once, I've had over the years, students ask me, so Lisa, what if I do this every morning and every night and it doesn't happen in 30 days? I said, well, then you woke up and went to bed very happy and very calm for the last 30 days. I mean, you're in a win-win situation. You've got nothing to lose. There is something called divine timing. Trust, even if after 30 days, if you didn't attract it yet, just trust that it's still coming. It's just divine timing. But there's a very good chance, I've seen it happen myself, that you will attract it within those 30 days.
And most things are going to be outside of the 30-day spectrum, right? But you will start to feel different in your body. And I just want to say that you gave one way that you can practice mindfulness, meditation, and breath work. And, I had mentioned the parasympathetic nervous system. I'll talk a little bit about why that's important. But you don't need to sit up and hold your fingers a certain kind of way to practice this. You can do it in bed, lying down. You can do it on the floor. You can do it any comfortable position you have. I think a lot of my clients get really nervous and anxious about the word meditation because they picture having to like sit straight up like the Dalai Lama on a hard surface, uncomfortable. And so they get stuck on the posture. It's not about the posture. It's more about relaxing the body and getting into a kind of almost like time travel mode, because the brain and the body, we can't really understand time, so we don't really know how much time has gone by from a past experience. That's how trauma works, right? That's how PTSD works. The same is true for future things that we might achieve. That's why when Olympic athletes are injured and they practice a visualization, their body is actually working. They've done studies on this where people who have been injured, who just visualized their exercise, didn't even lift up a weight, and they compared it side by side to people who were actually training with weights. And they the people who weren't actually weight training but just visualizing it did tone muscle and did make muscle mass. Not as much as the group that was actually using muscle mass, but that's where we can use this idea that our brain doesn't really know time to our advantage, because we don't know that if we can drift away and we can allow gratitude and love and compassion and let's call it kindness and equanimity to settle into the body on a cellular level, and we can go to a world where everything is the way that we want it to be, our body and our mind start to believe that it's true. And so in our state where we're not meditating or where we're not practicing this visualization, like I was saying earlier, our body and our mind are making choices to validate that state. So it's not magic. It's not like this just happens. It happens with changing of behavior. It happens with changing of beliefs. And, I'm a behaviorist, so I'm always going to look at thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And those actions, I mean, I can visualize all day long losing, weight or meeting somebody. But if I don't leave my house and take that action to go out of my house to give myself the opportunity to meet somebody, I'm not going to manifest it, right? So that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about magic. We're talking about really changing on a cellular level whatever experiences you're holding in the body that are getting in your own way, whatever belief systems you've accrued about what's possible for you, and also a gateway
Right.
to. There's a doctor, a neuroscientist, his name I think is Dr. Dodo. That sounds kind of funny, but I feel like I remembered it that way. But
No.
there's a lot of, no, I'll look it up, and I'll put it in the drop down box, but I believe it's Dr. Dodo, something like that. But he is a neuroscientist, and he's done a lot of research on this. And he's done a lot of research on this word manifestation and how this happens. And he's like, look, it's not magic, but there is an element of activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So for those of you guys who don't know what that is, when we're in fear, fight, or flight, what's called the sympathetic nervous system is activated, which is for survival. When we're in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is activated through meditation, which and other things, but one of the things why we're talking about meditation here, that brings on rest and reset in the body. The body relaxes, but it also produces oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. And oxytocin is the love chemical and hormone. It makes us feel love in the body. And there's something to being in a space of visualization through the heart, not the fear, is what he calls it. So he says that most of us get in our own way from making positive changes in our life because we're living in the sympathetic nervous system. We're living in fear. Our fear is holding us back from making those changes, right? Because fear of success, some of us are actually afraid of success. We're afraid of what it might look like if we actually get the things that we want. Some of us are afraid of failure. Some of us are afraid of change. We're afraid of so many things. So, nowadays anxiety is through the roof. So many people are living in that sympathetic nervous system. So the science part of this, so we like to do the ancient techniques and give you some modern day science to back it up.
I
Look,
love
right? Because
that.
that's essentially why we're so well balanced. But the science part of it is teaching us that when we get into a space of activating the parasympathetic nervous, this rest and reset, the oxytocin in our body, that love, that's actually, as humans, what we're designed to do. We're designed to love and nurture and take care of each other. We're pack animals. So when we come into a space of that love and that gratitude, we are more likely to take the risk, apply for the job, go talk to the good looking boy or girl down the street that we're nervous to talk to, right? Because fear isn't holding us back. So that's why at the beginning of this conversation, we said there's a lot going on here, and we're going to unpack some of this today. We won't unpack all of it. But I think for our listeners, a real thing that you can start doing in real time, once a great suggestion is that morning meditation, and don't get in your own way about how you have to sit or how you have to breathe or anything like that. I would say journaling is a very powerful thing to start doing in the morning when you want to make powerful, quick changes. We have studied that. We've studied that you are more likely to achieve a goal if you write it down, if you write it down multiple times.
Harvard actually did a study on that and said that there's people who basically don't have any goals. Then there's the people who think about and have a thought and a goal. And then the person who writes down that goal, and the person who writes down the goal, percentage-wise of success was much higher. That's great, Jay. Yeah.
Yeah, and Harvard also does well, it's Harvard Health. So Harvard Health also does a study on the power of gratitude and gratitude journaling as well in being in a space of goal setting. So it is starting to prove, we may not understand exactly why, but being in a space of gratitude and writing it down and visualizing it. And the neuroscientist I was just talking about, again, I'll look up his name. I think it's Dr. Dodo. He was saying that somatically, when we move our bodies and we combine that with a feeling and we combine that with an intention, it's more likely to help reset neural pathways in the brain. And so that's why the writing it down is so helpful, is because that tangibility of holding the pen and actually moving it somatically, moving the body, helps rewire the brain. So, things that, what do they say? Things that fire together wire together. So in that category of gratitude, love, and goal setting, when we're writing it down, it starts to merge those pathways in the brain. So we start to make those associations.
I want to throw something out there too, just to help our listeners with the power of belief. Because we look for evidence, and so I just want you to think back, in your life. Um, have you ever had a situation where you're thinking about somebody that maybe you haven't even heard from or talked to in years, and then all of a sudden, somehow you run into them, or they reach out and they call you? How does that happen? You know, so there's something going on, our power of mind, and this energy that we all share. So what we're talking about, it's not so far-fetched. And also, if you go back in your life, if there were times when, like, you knew something was going to happen, and you say, I knew it, I knew that was going to happen, whether it was positive or negative, when you knew it, it happened, didn't it? Or if you look at some of the great athletes that hit their goals, and they have in their mind, they can, like, I think it was Magic Johnson, or some of the great Michael Jordan, some of the great basketball stars, they could see themselves, they could see the ball going in the net over and over again. And this is, again, this is happening in our daily lives. You already have evidence.
So it is kind of like a chicken egg situation. It's like, did I know that this was going to happen and it was my intuition, or did I create it with thinking about it?
Well, for today, we're going with the power of belief and focusing on that, getting into that place of belief that
It
things
can be both, right? It can be both, because both are a so interesting part of the way that our brains work and how much we don't understand. And so again, we're not
did we cover enough.
this today, but we will start a part two. And I think next week we'll pick it up here and maybe talk about, we didn't even talk about the game of life and how to play it, which we
Oh
both.
my gosh. Okay, we have to do this next week. This is my favorite topic. And I also want to take everybody through an exercise of creative visualization. We do have it, don't we, on our channel? I think there's a manifesting guided meditation. I think I already put one on.
I don't know. I may have put one on as well. So we do have on our YouTube channel, if you're watching us on YouTube, we have a podcast section and a meditation section. You can check out both. If you want to enjoy our meditations without ads, you can look into a membership with Global Holistic Wellness, where you have access to a lot of guided meditation and hypnotherapy and even some EMDR techniques that I use in the work that I do. If you have any questions about our upcoming course, we have a new 8-week online course that starts August 6th. So that's right around the corner. You can visit our website at www.globalholisticwellness.com to learn more about that. That course is called the Essentials course. And if you're interested in this topic, you're definitely going to want to check out that course, because this is going to give you accountability every single week. It's going to help you make some huge, powerful changes, and your life will be different in 8 weeks. That's our guarantee. That's our money back guarantee. Your life will be different in 8 weeks if you take this course. So check that out. And if you have any questions, as always, if you're watching us on YouTube, awesome. Put it in the drop down box below, the comment box below. If you're listening to us on Spotify, you can email us at globalholisticcoaching@gmail.com. We get a lot of our content from the questions from our listeners and our clients and our students who come through to our program. So I think we will say this is part one on
Okay.
how to your life quickly, how to
Yes.
invest, and start making powerful changes in 30 days. And we will be working on part two probably right now. So we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.